Welcome, everyone, to the Over Under Movies podcast, where we take a prominent film or franchise in the world of filmmaking and debate whether it's overrated or if it's underrated. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dear friend, and my fiercest sparring partner, DeAngelis. Dylan, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Recording this in the middle of the week, so this is like after my normal 9-to-5 work day, so I'm going to try to keep the energy up. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, same. I just went for a run, feeling really strong. I love it. And this is going to be a weird episode because we're talking about some weird movies.
Yeah.
We're talking about Alex Garland. He has a new movie coming out called Civil War, and he has directed 3 features before this, and they're all kind of weird.
Yeah, we always talk about, behind the scenes here of like, hey, we should do more directors. It's fun to talk about movie directors. And then we start like looking into the filmography of certain directors, and it's like, this guy's done too many movies.
Yeah.
It's a little tough to like really do a deep dive into a director without seeing the full scope of their filmography. I know that like we did James Gunn and we did Christopher Nolan as one of our first, few podcasts. But like we had a lot of podcasts in the can before we actually started like releasing episodes. So now that like we're in the thick of it, like recording and releasing episodes like simultaneously, it's a little harder for us to like watch like 10 movies in preparation for an episode.
Luckily, this guy only has 3.
Only has 3. This guy's perfect.
We could do it. We could do it. Yeah, so his first feature film that he directed was Ex Machina, followed by Annihilation, and then more recently, Men. They're all sort of sci-fi-esque, weird thriller elements to all of them, and it looks like Civil War is going to have some of that as well. So just from what we watched, what were your general feelings towards these films?
Well, what's interesting about Garland is that, because I'm pretty sure I'm the one that brought up us doing Garland for the podcast, right? And my initial thought for him was like, oh, this guy's like an up-and-coming director. Mm-hmm. He's like one of those like younger directors. We're always looking for like, who's the next generation of directors coming up for, what the next like 20, 30 years of movies are going to look like. Is Alex Garland going to be one of those guys? And then I looked at his Wikipedia page and I saw that he was 53.
He's 53. He's been working in the industry for like a lot longer than the last 3 movies we just named. He's old. He started as a novelist before he was a filmmaker. So he's been around for a while.
Yeah, and just for like reference for anybody that doesn't know like the ages of like popular directors, 2 other directors that are also 53, a guy named Christopher Nolan and a guy named M. Night Shyamalan. Those are both directors that are 53 years old, and both have done at least 10 or more movies. Mm-hmm. So Garland, yeah, he's a little late to the game here. He's a very interesting guy, like reading up on his like biography. He started as a novelist in the 90s. He did a book called The Beach, which was turned into a Leonardo DiCaprio movie in the early 2000s. And then he did a lot of like production work, behind the scenes stuff. He worked on the Dread movie with Carl Urban that I know a lot of people like. He has a story credit on the Devil May Cry video game.
Yeah.
So this guy's been around, and then like 10 years ago, he decided to start directing movies. And yeah, I would say his best movie is his first one, Ex Machina. We watched Ex Machina together a couple weeks ago. It's a movie about like a Turing test with an AI robot that Oscar Isaac designs. I know you fucking love that movie. Are you still thinking about Ex Machina? Is it still in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to focus on reading up on his other movies. We watched Men also, and we both had to watch like an explainer video on that one. I enjoyed Men, but Ex Machina I thought was like next level. It's definitely still my favorite.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those directors where he came out of the gate insanely strong. Mm-hmm. And he followed it up with Annihilation, which is an adaptation of a book that both of us had read the book. Mm-hmm. I think we both liked the book a little better than the movie. The movie is like a little contrived. It's kind of tough to parse. All of his movies are kind of, they're wrought with allegory and like hidden messages. And he makes movies where, you go on YouTube afterwards and look up explainer videos about what the movie is about, because he doesn't exactly make things clear all the time.
Watching his movies feels like reading a book for English class, where like you have to discuss the symbolism and allegories afterwards in order to fully understand and appreciate the work, which I think makes it pretty challenging for initial audiences to go into and enjoy these films just as like entertainment. But I enjoyed all 3 of these movies. I did not like Annihilation the first time I watched it. I went back and watched a little bit of it for this podcast, and I did enjoy it more with some additional context. Yeah, I remember we talked about Annihilation on a previous podcast, not this podcast, but on another podcast.
Back in the day. This was what, 6 years ago maybe we did that?
2018 probably. I was doing a podcast about books that get turned into movies, and we picked Annihilation because it was a recent film. I think I told you I fell asleep in the theater during that film, and then I woke up to the screaming bear, like the mutant.
Oh god, you woke up at the worst possible time.
Yeah, like that bear woke me up. So I think that is why I didn't like the movie coming out of it, because it was literally a nightmare for me.
Yeah, his movies are interesting for several different reasons. I mean, one, he gets like big name actors generally in his movies, which is pretty cool. His movies also tend to feature like female leads, which I think is unique. Like Alicia Vikander is not like the main lead in Ex Machina, but she's probably the most important character in that story. And then Annihilation is, the whole story of Annihilation is about, it's a team of female scientists going into this anomaly. Mm-hmm. And then Men is about Jesse Buckley being like stalked and haunted by like a bunch of group of creepy men in this like little English town. And then Civil War, the film that he's making that's coming out soon here, I believe Kirsten Dunst is the lead of the film. So it's cool that, yeah, it's almost like he goes out of his way to like, you know, make like female-centric films. It's something that we noticed when watching Men, is that all of his movies also tend to have like Garden of Eden, like Adam and Eve type allegories to them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Men specifically is like literally Garden of Eden type stuff.
Yeah, one of the first things she does is spot an apple tree, eat the fruit, and then the first man that she talks to is like, the forbidden fruit.
Yeah, you don't need a YouTube explainer to tell you what's going on with that.
He spells it out for you. But yeah, I would say that theme, like Garden of Eden, Eve, and we looked up Lilith, these are all biblical female figures that existed in that garden. And a lot of these movies, I think, are about escaping that garden.
Yeah, I know you said you think that's entirely what Ex Machina is about.
Yeah.
Her name is Ava.
Yeah.
And Ava is also the name of Alex Garland's daughter in real life.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe he's just really into like Garden of Eden stuff.
Yeah.
He's a really big fan of Genesis.
I think so. Like Ava, it sounds like Eve. I think the movie WALL-E does kind of the same thing. So yeah, I think the movie WALL-E and the movie Ex Machina might be like the perfect pairing of films.
Have you seen that tweet that breaks down? We'll put it on screen. You're doing the edit for this, right? We'll put it on screen. It was a tweet saying that like WALL-E is Genesis, and it was breaking down like who each of the characters represent, and how Ava is Eve, and WALL-E is Satan. I don't know what the breakdown is supposed to be.
That's funny. Yeah, I'll have to find that tweet because I could see the argument for it, I guess. I loved Ex Machina. I'm coming around on Annihilation, and then Men was probably his hardest film to parse.
Yeah, I think Men is okay. It's a movie where he's going for some stuff, and if you're not latching on to what he's sending out, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, like you said, it's a very atmospheric film. It's not very plot-driven. You don't really know what's going on, and then they never explain it. So it's tough to watch, but I still felt pretty locked in while we were watching it. Do you think this guy's ever just going to make like a normal movie? Do you think Civil War is going to be like a more straightforward film? Well,
Civil War is going to be the big test here, I think. He's kind of doing the one for you, one for me type thing, where Ex Machina was a low budget original story that he crafted, and Annihilation had like a budget of like 45 million, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then he goes back and he does Men, which is again a low budget film, clearly something that was very personal to him. And then now Civil War is the biggest movie he's done so far. It's another A24 movie. It's getting a lot of press. It debuted at South by Southwest a few weeks ago. It's got really good reviews so far. So this could be kind of like a coronation of sorts for Alex Garland, going from this guy that makes like weird niche little like sci-fi and fantasy type stories to like, oh no, this guy, he made this like war movie of sorts. I mean, the movie that I'm seeing this being compared to in a lot of the reviews is Children of Men, the Alfonso Cuarón film, which Children of Men is like one of the greatest movies of the 21st century. Like it's incredible. And if he's able to match that energy of that like boots on the ground personal story in a crisis of humanity going on around them, then yeah, this could be like the thing that really like elevates him to the next level. I have the overrated argument for this podcast. So I'll get into it a little later here, whether or not those assumptions are unfounded to this point. We're recording this before Civil War. We'll probably end up seeing Civil War in theaters now.
So. Yeah.
I just got my AMC A-list pass, so
congratulations.
I can see 3 movies a week for free. AMC, feel free to sponsor the pod.
Yeah, shout out AMC. Should be friend of the pod.
Yeah, there's like an AMC theater, 3 blocks from our house. It's super close.
12-minute walk. I've timed it many times. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it's one of his longer films, but I think it'll be worth it. I think we should also talk a little bit about what he was doing prior to being a director. So he was a writer primarily, so he wrote several novels, and then he wrote a few screenplays that Danny Boyle ended up directing. So that was 28 Days Later, Sunshine, and then Dread, which was directed by someone named Pete Travis, I think. So if you don't know anything about Sunshine and 28 Days Later, those are also considered to be really good movies.
They're like cult classics.
Yeah, basically. And Danny Boyle is considered to be like an auteur director. People love him. So the fact that he collaborated with this guy so many times is like a good sign that this man is a talented writer. And then on Dread, apparently Carl Urban said that the credited director should not have been credited as the director, and that Dread should be considered Alex Garland's feature film debut.
Yeah, I know people, when they talk about Dread, the first person they mention, if it's not Carl Urban, they mention Alex Garland. Mm-hmm. They think of Dread, as like his production. And Dread it's a really cool movie because it's focused in like one building, essentially. It's a lot like The Raid, for anybody that's seen The Raid. One of the best like martial arts films like ever made, those 2 films. And it's great, and it takes the world like completely seriously. Even though, have you ever read any of the Judge Dredd comic books?
I have not.
So the Judge Dredd universe is like kind of silly because they basically combine judges and cops into like one profession. So you're like, it's literally like judge, jury, and executioner in one person. And they made a Judge Dredd movie in, I think it was in the 90s, with Sylvester Stallone and Rob Schneider as his like comedic foil. And so people thought of him as like a jokey character. And then this Alex Garland film comes out, and it's like, oh no, he's serious. And it's almost like a modern day RoboCop of sorts with that Dredd movie.
It's interesting because it seems like, and I don't have the numbers for Dredd because it's not one of his like primary films, but that seems like it was probably a bigger production than any of these other movies, if I had to guess. It's based on a comic book. They're definitely going for the superhero audience. He probably had a lot more money to work with at that time.
Yeah, Alex Garland's an interesting case study of like, this is a guy that could have been swept up into like Marvel or DC to do like superhero movies. He could have had a similar career trajectory as like Taika Waititi, who Taika Waititi is 48, is a little younger than Alex Garland, but someone who also made like small budget films that became like cult hits, and he got scooped up by Marvel. And Alex Garland, I'm sure he had meetings with Marvel and or DC. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Judge Dredd is like owned by one of those 2 comic companies.
No.
Okay, so it's an independent, but you feel like, he'd probably flourish in like those worlds. And that's kind of their MO, is that, especially Marvel, they like pulling younger up-and-coming directors. They pull directors that they can control, which is why somebody like Edgar Wright had no interest in doing a Marvel movie, because he's like, no, I do my movies how I want to do my movies. Did you see that they already have like a shooting schedule that they're working on for Spider-Man 4?
I did.
Even though they don't have a director named for the film?
Right, and they might not have a script.
That sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because even no matter how you feel about the John Watts films, he came in there with like a very specific vision for how he wanted to do Spider-Man. So he was able to pitch that to Marvel and see it through to the end. Now, Marvel just wants more Spider-Man, and they're just going to go with a director. So yeah, it does kind of suck.
Like, why even have a director at that point if it's just a machine?
I mean, you still need a director.
You need a guy, right?
But it could be anyone. And for Spider-Man, it literally could be anyone.
Who's the guy that does the Ant-Man films?
Peyton Reed.
Peyton Reed? What? Just have him do all the Marvel movies.
I don't know. Ant-Man 3 flopped, so I'm not sure he's getting that call.
He gets put in Marvel jail. He's like, I didn't even do anything. I did what you guys told me.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah, so do you think that if Civil War does well, that he's going to start taking more calls from these bigger studios?
It's possible. I mean, the case study comparison would be like Christopher Nolan, who he did Memento, and then he did
Insomnia.
So he did Memento, and then he did Insomnia, which are lower budget films, and then he goes right into Batman.
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's fucking go, baby! I'm ready for the big leagues." And that could be Garland, like, after this film, if it really takes off. I doubt that there's going to be like a Civil War cinematic universe that comes out of this. Doesn't seem like that kind of movie. But I was actually just rewatching the trailer for Civil War. It's a really weird concept for a movie, especially considering like Alex Garland is English. He's not American. Yeah. He's born in England. He lives in London. He's not an American. And he's making this like big film about an American Civil War in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that like the commentary in that film won't really be about American politics so much as just like human survival, things like that. And probably he'll go back to some biblical themes like we've seen him do in the past. I don't think it being about America means that it's going to be commentary on America.
Yeah, why not have it set in England then?
I guess he just wants the American audience.
Yeah, it's really weird because we're in an election year. The year 2024 is insanely political on its own, and he's got this fictional civil war happening. Have you seen the map of like the breakdown of the sides of this war?
When we first saw that map, I think the three of us, you, me, and our roommate John, all got together because John's a big political guy. He likes history and stuff.
Loves the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and he just loved dunking on that map and how silly it was. So yeah,
the Republic of Texas and the Second Republic of California working together.
Yep, I don't get it. We'll have to see how much research Alex Garland did into how feasible his various alliances were and why these events might have transpired. But at the end of the day, I'm thinking that it doesn't really matter where the battle lines are drawn.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. If he can make it like you've seen Children of Men, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Children of Men is like a boots on the ground story. It's like a personal narrative. It's not like the scope of the world obviously is huge. It spans like the entire world in Children of Men, but it's a story about like a group of people. And if I'm assuming that's the direction he's going in it with, is that there's American Civil War, but that's really just like, it's the backdrop.
Yeah, exactly.
To this like story that I'm telling with these people. It's really, really interesting he decided to do that this year, though. Yeah. And the A24 is like, booking this in this year as well. It's a really interesting calculation on their part to be releasing this film now.
I guess this is like the time to do it, like where everything does feel heavily politicized. Should be interesting.
You make a film that is like openly apolitical.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how political the movie is going to be, but again, like you said, that whole war is just the backdrop for a personal story. And I think I'll be interested in seeing what that personal story is. I also just haven't seen Kirsten Dunst in a lot of stuff lately, so...
Yeah, it's fun to see her and Jesse Plemons in a film together.
Yeah.
They're married.
That'll be good.
Even though Jesse Plemons looks like he's playing like a dickhead soldier, which is giving me Breaking Bad flashbacks.
Oh. Yeah, that's probably where a lot of us first encountered Jesse Plemons, so it'll be interesting to see him return to that type of role. Yeah,
I know a good number of the actors in Civil War are also in his show Devs, which I have not seen anything in Devs, though I know that it's a show that people like. I know it's got, what's his name, Thurfer Hawat from Dune. What's that guy's name? Stephen McKinley something. He's like a big dude. He's a bigger dude. I forget his full name.
Yeah.
He's in it. Kaylee Spaney's in it, who I think she's the lead in Devs. So it seems like he's working with actors that he's worked with before, which is good.
Yeah, he always has Sonoya Mizuno in all of his films. She played one of the robot women in Ex Machina, not Alicia Vikander.
She's one of the naked skin suits.
No, she's just the other robot. One of the other ones that stabs the guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she plays like Natalie Portman's doppelganger, I think, at points in Annihilation.
Oh, okay.
And then she has a voice cameo in Men as a police officer.
So she has like small roles and all this stuff.
Yeah, but she's the lead in Devs.
Okay.
So yeah, he has like a stable of actors that he always like returns to work with, and this one in particular, he works with every time. And then Oscar Isaac's been in 2 of his films, and then yeah, I've yet to see Devs or Civil War, but I imagine we'll see familiar faces.
Yeah, but it would be curious to think of like, what is the big property that he could jump off into if this is a big hit?
Yeah, like the real question is like, does he have any interest in doing that? Would he even want to direct a Star Wars? And the answer is like, maybe if like they came to him with a really good pitch for a Poe Dameron film and they were like, Oscar Isaac's on board, do you want to do it? Maybe he'd say yes.
Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed that Christopher Nolan would have wanted to do a Batman origin story in 2004? Probably not.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. But I didn't know who that was.
When you look back at Christopher Nolan's career, the Batman films are the outliers because they're known IP that he's making stories within, where all of his other stuff is wholly original.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of how it is with this guy. He hasn't adapted. I mean, I guess Annihilation's
a directed adaptation, yeah.
But he said that the reason why it's so different from the book is because he said that he didn't directly adapt it. Instead, he adapted it based on his memory of reading the book 2 or 3 years after reading the book. So he did not go back to the book for reference. He wanted the film to have a dreamlike quality, so he just kind of winged it in a way.
Yeah, it's funny whenever we look up movies that are based on books, it's always one or the other. It's either the director absolutely loved the book and they find the book is like gospel and they want to take what is on the page and put it on screen as close to one-to-one as possible. And that's like Dune, right? Mm-hmm. Denis Villeneuve fucking loves Dune. And he wanted to make it as close to the book as possible. Obviously, he took some liberties. And we talked about that. You guys can check out our spoilers discussion that we did. It's on our podcast feed here already. Or you get something like, I don't know, like Jodorowsky's Dune, where Jodorowsky openly talks about having never read the book.
Right.
And he just wanted to do cool shit with like all of his buddies and like do a bunch of drugs. And so it's like one of the extremes always, it feels like, where the director's thinking, well, it's an interesting story. I'm going to make whatever I want, though, with it.
Yeah, and that's definitely the route that Alex Garland took with Annihilation.
I mean, you could argue all of his films are adaptations because they're adaptations of the Bible.
They're all adaptations of the Bible, that's right. Looking at his films, it's interesting seeing the budgets go like up and down, and then the box office returns. Ex Machina has a $15 million budget. It made $37.3 million. And that was in like 2015 or something.
Yeah, that movie probably broke even, or made a little bit of money.
I would say it made some money, and then word of mouth meant that that was back at the tail end of people buying Blu-rays and DVDs. I would say it probably made its money back and some change. Annihilation got a much bigger budget, 40 to 55 million. Only made 43.1 million at the box office, so that's a flop.
Yeah, it probably lost money.
And then Men, the budget information has not been released as far as I know. And the box office is 11.2 million, but that was always going to be his toughest sell.
Yeah, I would guess that budget was probably in like the 10 million range. Yeah. Something like that.
He really only had to pay like 2 actors, so probably wasn't too hard. Although spoilers, but the birthing sequences looked a little expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot of CGI on the back end of your film.
So it's interesting to see him get he goes from his first film, which is a small budget, 15 million. It makes money, gets insane word of mouth, good reviews. So he gets a bigger budget for the second one. That one kind of tanks, and then he returns to most likely a much smaller budget and then makes a smaller box office return. It's interesting that he even gets to get another shot with Civil War.
Yeah, at a certain point, he needs to have that big hit. He's got to have that movie that makes triple its budget, or something that really outperforms what is expected of it. And the Civil War movie probably won't be that, if I had to guess. I mean, I don't think that movie is making over $100 million. I mean, it's possible I'm wrong, but I haven't even seen much like marketing for it. Like, have you seen commercials or like, I guess ads on like YouTube or anything for it?
I saw them initially, but I might have even been seeking them out. I looked at the numbers. It's tracking to do like well comparatively to its budget.
Part of the issue of doing that American focused like story is that you'll get good returns in the American box office, but international, it's probably not going to do very well.
Yeah, but I doubt it was going to do even if it was. I mean, America's your biggest audience. If he did a British version, Americans wouldn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to go all in
money
on one country, you go all in.
You always go for America. That's our motto here at the Over Under podcast. Always go all in on America.
Red, white, and blue, baby.
That's right. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
So, before we can talk about whether this movie is overrated or underrated, we have to figure out how it's rated. And by this movie, I mean Alex Garland.
This man.
Sorry, it's been so long since we've talked about a director, and I'm just used to the script. So before we talk about whether this man, Alex Garland, is overrated or underrated, we have to talk about how he is rated. Dylan, based off what you know about these movies, and I do have some numbers in front of me, how do you think he's rated?
I think this guy's a solid like 7 to a 7.5. I think movie fans know who this guy is, and movie fans think he's a good director. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I would put him on the scale of like, yeah, he's solid. He's got a passing grade as a director.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like considered in that like upper echelon yet. But I think he's viewed as an up-and-coming director, and if this guy was like, if he was like 40 years old, then I think he would be thought of as part of that next batch.
Oh, yeah. Fully into his career.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at like up-and-coming directors, there's not many that are under 40 that I was able to find. The only one I could find was Ari Aster. Ari Aster is 37.
Oh, that's crazy. That's really young.
But nobody, like I could find Greta Gerwig's 40, Jordan Peele's 45.
Well, it takes a long time to become a director. Like that's always like the end point of a film career.
Yeah, maybe that's just a thing where you don't see a lot of young movie directors. You don't see a lot of like George Lucas's making big budget films like straight out of college.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, and it's like it just keeps getting harder because the market gets more and more saturated with other people who want to be directors.
Yeah, and because of the movie system, you would need somebody like George Lucas who was already like plugged into the Hollywood system, like growing up. Mm-hmm. They can just come out and immediately start doing movies.
Yeah, and movies are a lot more expensive now too. Like Kevin Smith was able to fund his first movie with like a few $1,000s and a group of friends and the convenience store he worked at. You can't really do that as easily.
Christopher Nolan made following just by like guerrilla filmmaking on the street. Just like I'm gonna walk behind you, buddy, with this camcorder. Just walk down the road.
Yeah,
and hope no cops stop us.
Like people can still do that, but it's not just like the money; it's also the time. So you have to do that and not be working at the same time. It's hard.
So what do you think on rating for him?
So Ex Machina has 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, has a like A rating from audiences. Annihilation has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really high, but has a C from audiences on CinemaScore and a 71% overall score from PostTrack. And then Men has a 69% Rotten Tomatoes score, so still fresh, I think, but it has a D+ on the audience scale from CinemaScore and a 52% from PostTrack.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
So we're tracking his films get lower and lower, both critically and audience-wise, and box office returns. It's a little bit rough, but I do think that Men is a little bit underrated. And I think Ex Machina is perfectly rated. I think, 92%. Great. It's a great film. I think, like you said, not a lot of people know who this guy is, but the ones that do think he's pretty good. So I would also go with a 7.
Okay, 7. Sounds good.
Cool. So you have the job of arguing that Alex Garland is overrated. What have you got?
Well, the overrated argument for this guy is that he's a director that is getting a lot of hype right now that is a little bit unfounded, in my opinion. It's possible that he's already made the best movie he's ever going to make in Ex Machina, and that he's never going to like live up to that fully ever again. It's also possible that this guy just like stops directing at some point here and goes back and does like production work or screenwriting, or he writes another novel or something like that. I'm not entirely sure this guy's like fully all in on being like a director at all. And if that's the case, then yeah, he's overrated, because there's plenty of directors out there that have made like one or two good movies before. What, you know, separates like good directors from great directors is consistency. And to go along with consistency, you also need to have like a variety in the films that you're making. And we talked a lot in this podcast about how these 3 films that he's done already are all very similar to each other. It's a lot like when we talked about James Gunn, where James Gunn has made a lot of like comedic superhero films, and we're not sure if he can step outside the box. I mean, for him, we're not going to find that out for a while. His next film is a Superman film. But this Civil War movie that Alex Garland's making is really going to be the make or break for him, I think, because, yeah, it's a bigger budget. And this is a guy that he hasn't made a lot of money on his films at this point. And eventually, A24 and these studios, they're going to pull the plug on him, and they're going to put him in a director jail, at least for a time. And it's possible he gets put in jail and he goes, I don't feel like directing anymore. And that's like my main argument for him being overrated, is that I think like film nerds think of this guy as one of the next group. And when you look at him and you compare him with Ari Aster or Greta Gerwig or Jordan Peele or even Taika Waititi, like, I don't think he's in that stratosphere yet, at least. He's really got to prove that he can do it and do it consistently. And if he's able to really turn the Civil War, like if the Civil War film gets like Oscar nominations, then I think it lends him a case for being, yeah, you know, in that upper group. But at the current period, he's just not there yet. He's got to prove himself more. He's only been making films for, you know, Ex Machina came out, what, 10 years ago? And if you include Dredd, obviously he's been doing it for longer. But directing is really hard, and it takes a lot of like refinement. And I just don't think that he has the clout to like warrant like how he's discussed amongst like film people yet. We'll see. Maybe I'll be eating my words like a month when like people are saying Civil War is Children of Men, and then yeah, he's that guy then.
Yeah, he'll be that guy. Yeah, I mean, I think that his output right now, each of his films is different enough that he does have some variety, more so than James Gunn, I would say, who did one like body horror alien film and then 5 superhero comedies. This guy has done one like artificial intelligence science fiction film, and then one about like more of a biological threat that might not even be a threat, and it's more of a dream. And then his third film, Men, was basically a weird horror film. I think there is some more variety across his work so far than there is with Taika. And then for like his quantity, that's 3 films over the last 9 years. That's pretty good output for a director. And we're getting another one this year. So he'll have 4 films coming out over the last 9 years. So he's definitely grinding. And he also has a TV show that's out right now. He's consistently working. He's consistently getting great performances out of his cast members. And a lot of them are returning, which means that they probably like working with him. They find that he's able to get their best work. So I just think that what you're saying, like him not proving himself yet, I kind of disagree with. I think we need to be judging it based on the work that he has done. And I do think there's obviously enough of that we can make kind of a call on whether he's overrated or underrated.
Yeah, so I mean, but we landed on a 7, right? So your argument is like this guy's an 8.
Yeah.
Like you think he's an 8?
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that dragged him down is like this audience score giving him a D+ on Men.
So nobody says that audience need to like your movies for your movies to be good.
I just think that these movies kind of get advertised as something that they're not, which means that the audience scores just they hit really low, because Men was advertised as probably a more classic type of like horror thriller, even a slasher type of movie. So people were like, this might be like fun to watch if I want to get scared. And then they watched this religious allegory, slow moving film about a woman's grief, and they didn't like it or get it. I think all of his films require a little bit more like scrutiny and a willingness to like dive in and look at the symbolism in his films, which is work. But if you do that, then you get heavily rewarded by finding deeper meaning in his films. So I think that not a lot of other directors are doing that type of thing. I would say that like Jordan Peele is doing similar stuff and also able to make like entertaining films that please general audiences at the same time.
Yeah, Jordan Peele's movies make money.
Yeah, and Jordan Peele's movies make money. But like this guy, I think if you really like put time in to think about his films and go over them and look at the symbolism, and like you and I had to watch a video and read about some of the symbolism in Men. But doing all that, you know, that's the first time we've ever done that for anything we've watched for the podcast. Sit down and watch an explainer video together. And we had a good time doing it. So he's making films that give you a lot more to chew on after the fact. And I know that that's not something that general audiences appreciate every time, but I think it's great. So I would definitely consider him to be underrated.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of this argument is going to, I think, get settled when like the dust settles on Civil War. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, the upside of Civil War is Children of Men, but like the downside to Civil War would be something like, have you seen any of the Purge sequels?
I haven't seen a single Purge.
Okay, so the first Purge movie is like a self-contained story where like a family is like boarded up in their house and a bunch of crazy people try to break into their house to steal their shit. First Purge movie is fine. Then they try to go like bigger scale with the sequels, and they turn it into this like whole political thing of using the Purge as a way to like mill the general population down, for people to get their anger taken out. It's not good. It's poorly done. And that would be the bad end of what the Civil War film could be, is if they go to like they try to explain things too much. I do kind of hope that I don't hope that it stays apolitical, but I hope that they don't try to go too large scale with it. I don't need to see like the inner workings of the Republic of Texas and the Republic of California and the Florida territories and President Ron Swanson over the broadcast. Just give us like a nice like contained story with this group of people, even though the trailers are showing a lot of guns being shot. So that's how that film is being marketed. They're trying to show it as this like urban warfare story, which I don't think that's what it's going to end up being. And I'm curious to see. I think this is going to be another film of his like Men, where like critics will kind of like it and then audiences will not like it.
I think that's
which is not like, that's not how you get movies made. Audiences need to like your stuff at a certain point.
Yeah, I do expect this to be slightly more accessible than Men. It'll probably be on the level of Ex Machina, where things will be explained and we'll have a good understanding of what he's talking about. But yeah, I do agree that this is being marketed as like a war film, and that's not really what it's going to be. So we'll have to see how audiences respond this time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you would like to say for your argument, or just about Alex Garland?
No, not really. I think ultimately, what would we come out with? I think 7 is probably a properly rated situation. It's a little tough to tell. This guy is a bit of we don't have enough information to like truly know yet. A lot of this is us projecting what this guy could be. I mean, 10 years from now, what are we thinking of Alex Garland as a director? Are we thinking of him as like this guy's the next Christopher Nolan? Or is this guy like M. Night Shyamalan, who is a guy that made an incredible movie early in his career and then kind of had difficulty living up to that film for the rest of his career? It's tough to say.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, a lot of that will get answered like this week when the movie comes out.
Yeah, definitely check it out in theaters. I mean, I'm planning on seeing it. It seems like it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, we'll plug Civil War. We'll plug AMC A-lists. Yeah, I would agree that right now I feel like he's properly rated. I really loved Ex Machina, but then I don't have that same sort of fervor for his other two films. Maybe if I had seen Dread or Devs, I would change my tune. But when I just love like one of his 3 movies so far, that makes him like a 7 out of 10 for me. So This is one of our rare, we agree, properly rated episodes.
Yeah, it's boring. It's a boring ending. I apologize.
That's too bad.
Nah, this guy sucks. Fuck the British.
Cool. Well, I guess that'll be it for this episode. Just go see the movie, and then we'll come back and talk.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a review pod, like if we have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah, we can do that. Civil War. What's the release date?
Fuck. Where's our producer? Our producer's not doing his job.
Put it in post. We'll fix it in post.
Civil War coming to theaters April 12th, 2024.
April 12th. I have a wedding to go to that day, so I'm not going to be able to see the premiere. But April 12th, Civil War, be there, and let us know what you think in the comments.
You know what day Captain America Civil War came out?
No.
May 6th, 2016.
Wow.
Why didn't they release this film around like 4th of July?
I don't think it's a patriotic movie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. So that's what we're going to do right after we finish uploading this episode. And I go to that wedding.
Beautiful.
So that's going to be it for this episode. For myself, for Dylan, thank you for watching. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you get your podcasts. Join our Discord. Check out our Patreon. We have a lot of fun tiers that you can join. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you at the movies.
See the movies. Bye.